It's been a year since the launch of the 12 from Christopher Ward, and in that time it's been a model that has completely changed my approach to watch collecting. As the channel name would suggest, I have trouble controlling my spending when it comes to watches. If I see it, like it, and can afford it, I tend to buy it. Now, that was entirely true of the 12. I already owned a Trident, and while initially I wasn't sold on the 12 as I already owned a PRX, it grew and grew and grew on me to the point where I bit the bullet and bought one. I think over the course of my life it might well turn out to be my most significant watch purchase when it comes to collecting. Before the 12, I would wear a different watch every single day to pair with outfits or my mood. Once I had the 12, I just kept wearing it, day in, day out. It changed my mentality when it comes to watches. I've broken the seal on selling them now, but I used to keep absolutely everything and buy consistently more and larger watch boxes to contain them all in. However, when nothing else was getting a look in, it made me reflect on what I was doing. I use wrist time as my main barometer when it comes to reviewing a watch, and from that perspective, the 12 is the best watch I own. I now want to curate a smaller but more worn collection. I'll still be buying watches and trying to broaden my horizons, but I'm raising the bar in terms of my expectations, and that's all thanks to the 12. I mentioned in a previous video that I've sold off a big chunk of my collection, and I'm starting that consolidation process. I'm going to take my time putting that review together. I want to see if I can take a step up in terms of production values, so you have to bear with me on that one. Back to the matter at hand. The 12 is so named thanks to its dodecagonal design, the 12 angular edges that make up its bezel. That same design language is featured on the bezel of the exhibition caseback beneath the watch. The watch already comes in just under 10mm in thickness, and these edges further help to break up the silhouette of the design. I often think the thickness of a watch can be an underestimated consideration when it comes to shopping for watches, especially if you're looking online and looking at them face on. But it's one of the more important factors when it comes to on-wrist experience. The thinner the watch, the better it will fit under clothing, especially formal wear. It's also likely to be lighter, less bulky, and more comfortable as a result. Not only that, but a smaller overall package is, at least in my opinion, more refined and a clear sign of quality. Now, I hope that you can see clearly enough from the footage on display, but in terms of wear and tear, my 12 has held up extremely well following months of wrist time. Aside from a few self-inflicted scratches, on the clasp largely, caused from wearing the watch while typing against a laptop edge, you wouldn't really know that the watch wasn't new. My only quibble with the model is the 38-hour power reserve, which isn't enough to last over the weekend if I don't wear it. So the time does need to be set every Monday. Beyond the dial work and measurements of the watch, which I've discussed at length in previous videos on my channel on this model, my favourite element about it is the way that it interacts with light. The finishing is truly excellent and well above the expectations from this price point in my opinion. I would put it third in my collection, behind only my new edition and my Grand Seiko GMT. The bezel and bracelet are the standouts here. The contrast between brushed and polished surfaces plays with the light every time you move. I'd also point out the crown guards as a standout element of the watch, and something that separates the 12 in its silhouette from its 70s inspired sports watch competitors on a budget, namely the PRX from Tissot and the F77 from Nevada Grenchen. As part of this video, I wanted to look at the current 12 model range. Since my first video on the watch, there have been several fresh new releases added. The only genuine hang-up I have about the watch that I own is it exactly the right model for me? Would I be happier with a smaller size? I talk a lot in my videos about 36 to 40mm being my desired range. Really, I'd love something in the middle so I didn't have to pick from the two extremes. But I've happily worn the 40 for all of this time, and it has the added date functionality, so I can't have gone too far wrong. The other thing that bothers me is the colour. Again, it's not that I'm remotely unhappy with the Glacier Blue, but is there another colourway I'd enjoy even more? Well, to answer that question, let's have a look at what's on offer. To be clear, in this section I'm only going to focus on the new releases that I haven't covered in previous videos. You're more than welcome to look back at those if you want my thoughts on the original 36 and 40mm versions, or the Halo additions to the collection. The colourways that have been added since are the Nardus Green, Frosted Lavender, Maroon Blue, Mineral Blue, Cosmic Purple, and I believe the Aurora Green is also a later addition, but by all means correct me on that if I'm wrong. It's unusual for every colour choice in a collection to appeal to me, but in this case it really does. I think if I had to choose, the Cosmic Purple is probably my favourite of the bunch, simply because purple is such an underused colour when it comes to watch design, and you may have seen from my channel something that I'm really interested in. Not every colourway is available with every material and size. For example, you can only get the Cosmic Purple in 36mm titanium. If you wanted steel, Frosted Lavender is your best option for purple, and if you wanted 40mm, it has to be the Nebula Purple in titanium. I won't go through all the permutations here for the sake of brevity, but I would forewarn you to be careful when browsing and ordering. Ironically, that might be my biggest criticism of the watch itself. You can't completely customise what you want on the website. It does make sense though, having certain colourways that are only available in more expensive materials is one way of showing others that you've spent the extra on the upgrade. Unfortunately, that is part and parcel of the luxury watch market. I think it would be better just to let customers get exactly what they want, but then I'm not a business manager. It is a £550 gap between titanium and steel, which would be more than enough to put some people off. I personally think if I were buying a model now, I would go for the Cosmic Purple 36mm titanium on a bracelet. Because I already struggle finding fault with the 12, but that version is lighter, smaller, and has a more interesting colourway, so I think it might be even better than the model I already own. Now the timing of this video release was accidental on my part, but quite fortuitous, as on the 22nd of April there was a presentation given for existing Christopher Ward customers regarding a new release on the 24th. I've held this video launch back as I don't want to step on anyone's toes until everything becomes public, but the new model was the 12X, the most expensive and engineered model in the 12 range to date. This features a skeletonized in-house SH21 movement, encased in 2 grades of titanium for added definition and contrast, very high-end loom including a Globalite wedge at 12 created by Xenoprint, a tungsten rotor that features multiple levels of depth, and the component I was most impressed by, a butterfly clasp with 3mm of micro adjustment. Now the larger sizing of the watch and the price point is enough to put me off, but I have to say this is a deeply impressive offering from the brand, and alongside the Bel Canto pushes it further into the higher end luxury section of horology. I love the ambition and drive at Christopher Ward. Apart from the Halo, they've not made any missteps at all from my perspective over the last few years. I hope the brand keeps pushing. I just hope they continue to make watches that I can actually afford as well. To conclude, I think the biggest compliments that I would pay to the 12 are that it's changed my watch collecting habit, simply because it's so much better than the majority of my collection. I'd also say the only way I'd ever consider selling my 12 is to buy another one in a different size or colour. I must admit, I am tempted to buy that 36mm version and just keep both, but these are £1,000 or more at minimum, so that isn't realistic. If money were no object, I absolutely would though. Another thing holding me back from that is being sport for choice. There are so many combinations of colours and materials that are genuinely really tempting, I wouldn't know what to get. Even while writing up the script for this video, I've thought about the Cosmic Purple, but now I've spent more time looking through the range, I'm changing my mind. The benefit here though is that if they're all good, you can't really go wrong. I would just end by saying that this has been on my wrist for probably 75% or more of the time that I've worn a watch over the past year. I cannot praise it highly enough, and it gets a gleaming recommendation from me to prospective buyers, for whatever that might be worth. In the time between now and the release of my first Christopher Ward video, I've actually lost count of how many other brands I've tried. Christopher Ward remains my favourite, and that's largely down to the 12. As ever, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, consider leaving the video a like, and subscribing if you want to see more content like this.